Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. Today's the 5th of March, 2017, and today I am going to give you an in-depth 4K ultra high resolution trip all around above and back down again Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Devil's Tower is a national monument. It was one of the first monuments in the United States of America to be designated as such. Devil's Tower has a long and storied past. Devil's Tower is, as you would say, fairly infamous. It was named in 1875 when a misinterpretation from Colonel Richard Irving Dodge's expedition somehow translated the native name as Bad God's Tower, and this eventually led to the name Devil's Tower. It has many tribal names. The Lakota Indians have their own name for it, such as Malto Tepalia, which means Bear Lodge. You can also see Devil's Tower featured in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, an iconic American movie from quite some time ago. I am going to take you up, down, and over this mountain right now. Devil's Tower, also known as Mato Tepalia, which means Bear Lodge in Lakota, is allegedly a volcanic neck that rises 1,267 feet from the Black Hills in northeastern Wyoming. It was the very first national monument in the United States. Now, I already told you that. It was bestowed with that designation by Teddy Roosevelt on September 24th, 1906. In recent years, around 1% of the 400,000 annual visitors actually climb the tower. Long before the tower was being recognized by the American government, native tribes had geological and cultural connections to it. They called it everything from Aloft on a Rock, or Kiowa, to Grizzly Bear Lodge, Lakota. It wasn't given its demonic name until Colonel Richard Irving Dodge led an expedition through Wyoming in 1875. His interpreter botched the translation, calling it Bad God's Tower, which was eventually shortened to Devil's Tower. And right now you can see on the side of this, there was a video that went around for a long time, and it was saying that this was a petrified tree, that this was the stump of an enormous petrified tree. And the reason that came to be is because of the octagonal ledges of basalt that go all the way up it. It looks like the cellular level of a tree when you cut the tree in half and look at it under a microscope. Now, I didn't have time or the gear to try to climb this mountain, but what I did do is get drone footage from either side as well as above several times, and I'm way up there. There are two great legends regarding the tower and the unusual looking columns that bear a striking resemblance to claw marks. It's no surprise that both the stories from the Lakota, Sioux, and Kiowa Indians involve a similar narrative. In the Lakota Sioux legend, 6 girls were out picking flowers when they were attacked and chased by a bear. The Great Spirit felt bad for them and raised the ground beneath their feet. The bears gave chase and attempted to climb the newly formed tower, but they couldn't get to the top. The bears fell off, clawing the sides of the monolith. The Kiowa legend follows a similar storyline but includes astrology as well. 7 little Kiowa girls were out playing, spotted by several giant bears, and were chased. The girls prayed to the Great Spirit, and sure enough, the ground rose beneath them towards the heavens. The bears tried to climb the rock but only managed to leave their deep claw marks on the sides. The girls reached the sky and were turned into the constellation Pleiades. Now, I'm not exactly sure about all that, but I will tell you one thing. There is an awful lot of ritualistic stuff laying all around this, and there's even signs from the National Park Service saying not to disturb any of the prayer offerings that are hanging in all the trees everywhere around this place. Now, before I continue taking you up the side, let me show you what you can expect if you ever actually visit this area. It's a national park, of course, so you can't just go in there for free. You have to pay a fee because, welcome to America. There's also a small park with a sculpture right next to it that frames the entire tower in perfectly. You can see me standing right next to it, yammering away. And all throughout the pathway encompassing the entire tower, you will find offerings hanging like this in all the trees everywhere. This is the base right here with a small path leading all the way around the tower itself. And there are black and red offerings all around this area. There's also some binoculars. You can take a look up the tower, but I brought my own. This is the bottom of the tower looking up with a Nikon P900. And you can clearly see the basalt and how it allegedly forms. I still have a hard time believing the official story, but look at how fluid it forms and turns and comes up much like the roots of a tree. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I can understand where the rumor would become a larger story, we'll say. But you can see the octagon shapes right here where pieces have broken off over the years. And you can also see climbers up there. People go up to the top and there's a pile of rocks that's kind of a memorial for those that have climbed it. At the very base, they show you how you can climb this structure because the grooves in it make it rather easy. Again, I wasn't prepared for it in any way at all. Otherwise, I would have tried. But there's a good zoom in and a zoom out of the actual structure at the top. And it's just really, really curious how this all formed. Notice the smooth, sweeping curves all the way at the base. It literally looks like somebody was building a monument and all the rubble is laying at the bottom. That's all I can say. I have my own particular ideas about this, as well as the fact that it was the first national monument declared in the United States by Roosevelt. I just find that odd, as everything in the United States has an esoteric underpinning to it in one way or another. These signs are located all the way up the trail, encompassing the entire structure. And I find it very odd how the National Park Service is so worried about the Indians' rituals and prayers, and yet one state over, at the same time I was filming this, the police were arresting the North Dakota water protectors and burning their entire encampment down. But I digress. Indeed. Okay, back to the 4K footage of climbing the mountain. Now, according to the Geological Survey, Devil's Tower rises above the surrounding grassland and ponderosa pine forest like a rocky sentinel. I can attest to that. Northern Plain tribes have lived and held ceremonies near this remarkable geological formation for thousands of years. Fur trappers, explorers, and settlers alike were awed by the tower's majesty. In 1906, Teddy Roosevelt established Devil's Towers as our nation's first national monument. Many have gazed at the tower and wondered, how did this amazing formation form? Most of the landscape surrounding Devil's Tower is composed of sedimentary rocks. The rocks are formed from broken or dissolved fragments of other rocks and are usually deposited by wind or water. The oldest visible in Devil's Tower Monument Park were laid down in a shallow inland sea. This sea covered much of the central and western United States during Triassic time, 225 to 195 million years ago. The dark red sandstone and maroon siltstone interbedded with shale can be seen along the Belle Forte River. Oxidation of iron-rich minerals causes the redness of the rocks. The rock layer is known as the Spearfish Formation. Above the Spearfish Formation is a thin band of white gypsum called the Gypsum Springs Formation. Gypsum is an important mineral research commonly used in making drywall. This layer of gypsum was deposited during the Jurassic time, 195 to 136 million years ago. Seas retreated and returned. Green-gray shales deposited offshore in deep marine environments were interbedded with fine-grained sandstones, limestones, and sometimes thin beds of red mudstone. These rock layers, called the Stockade Beaver Member, are part of the Sundance Formation, also of Jurassic Age. The Hewlett Sandstone Member, also part of the Sundance Formation, is a yellow, fine-grained sandstone deposited on an ancient beach. Resistant to weathering, it forms a nearly vertical cliff that encircles the tower itself. Seas retreated and advanced, landforms developed and eroded, new sediments were deposited 50 to 60 million years ago during Tertiary time. Now, if all that sounded like mumbo jumbo or a really bad straight answer, I'd have to agree with you completely. Now, if you've listened to my channel for any length of time, you realize that the official story just does not do it for me. But hopefully enough people come over to watch the video and they'll get an understanding of what they're being told is the creation of this tower right here is completely unfeasible. According to science, the Earth used to be larger and there were seas above it, and the seas receded and washed everything else away and left Devil's Tower here standing alone. Now, I used aerial photography equipment as well as other cameras on this, and each time we were having magnetic interference of one type or another. The place is incredibly eerie. We showed up here around 4:39 in the afternoon after driving for 2 days straight, and it's absolutely breathtaking as you're driving through the mountains and you can see it off in the distance. It's standing there all alone, all by itself. And the story of a volcano forcing it up, making it out of basalt, just doesn't make any sense. It would have to be some sort of a material that was pressed through something like a screen to cause this type of shaping that goes all the way around and also on the top. I'm giving you an alternate side right now. Now I'm coming up from the highway. Before I was in the parking lot, so I didn't have to go up so high. Right now I'm going up very, very high. But we're going to get right over to the side and you'll be able to look at the entire top perimeter of this structure in ultra high def. So the funny thing about this mountain is it's not just science that has legends. It's not just Native American children being chased by imaginary bears up rocks and praying. There's lots of other things. For instance, this was in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's from 1977. I don't remember who made it, but the stories surrounding Devil's Towers aren't all Native American legends. Characters who witnessed UFOs became oddly obsessed with Devil's Tower and drawn to the site as aliens land their spaceship near the formation. So we've all seen that for the most part, and if you haven't, you'll see it. Scientists learn to communicate with them using tones and lights, which is not too far from reality, I would say. Visiting Devil's Tower is a tradition. It's the first national monument, I've already told you that, declared in 1906, I've already told you that. If you go look at the date, you'll discover that this was declared a national monument comes out to 666. No surprise there. We all know that the people that run things, to run the government, especially the national parks and military bases, love their esoteric imagery and their esoteric numerology, dates, and astrology. So, as you can see, the drone is really, really up there right now. I'm going to give you a nice 360-degree view for all those flat earthers that want to look out as far as they can. Unfortunately, I only have 2x zoom on the drone, so this is as good as I could get you. And again, I was having a tough time getting over the top of this, but I did it. Now, let alone the conspiracy community and the flat earth community have decided that this could in fact be an ancient tree stump. Now, I had an opportunity to stop and look at some petrified trees in real life, the exact same ones in the movie Ancient Trees. I forget the name of it, Flat Earth, Giant Trees, or whatever it was called, and this is not the same. What this looks like is somebody was literally sculpting this tower and left the debris at the bottom. But Devil's Tower has become a popular landmark for UFO sightings ever since Steven Spielberg used the location in 1977 for Close Encounters. However, it's been a mystery sort of place. Sundance, Wyoming market this monolith that rises nearly 900 feet above a barren plot of land that prompted UFO fan President Teddy Roosevelt to make it the first national monument in 1906. Now, it's funny that they say Roosevelt was a UFO fan. Keep that in mind, some 105 years ago. Near Devil's Towers are two very telling signs. One informs visitors of the local American heritage, stating the tower is held sacred, while another smaller sign that's made of metal proclaims that Dr. J. Allen Hynek believed that alien life visited towers over the centuries. Now, if you remember, Dr. J. Allen Hynek was one of the people that was used to debunk the alien theories and instead came up with alien activity is indeed real, but it's not interstellar, it's interdimensional. What he was saying is that these things were twisting humanity up in ridiculous knots. They were interdimensional demonic beings. So I just find that odd. I didn't realize that this was associated with that, but I am familiar with Hynek's work. It's also interesting that one of the first photographs of Devil's Tower from 1900s features one of the first photos of a UFO, according to Eliza Whittier. In fact, the photo that accompanies the report shows that Whittier believes is one of the first official photos of a UFO flying near the top left of the tower. And this is the picture right here from 1900. If you look at Devil's Tower, you can clearly see what seems to be a UFO right here in the upper left-hand side, as indicated in the article. So it's either some tomfoolery was done with that original 1900s picture, or it's legitimate. It's very difficult to tell. In my honest opinion, in my humble opinion, I don't believe in interstellar space travel. I don't believe that they've been to the moon, and the evidence comes directly from them that basically backs up my theory. But I digress. Back to the tower. Dr. Joseph Hynek is a famed U.S. astronomer, professor, and one of the first official ufologists to claim that alien life is here and has been here for eons. The one thing that they're leaving out in this article is that he says straight up that they are not interstellar, that they are interdimensional. The article goes on to say, sadly, Professor Hynek died, as have many ufologists, of mysterious causes relating to a malignant brain tumor on April 27th, 1986. He was 75 when he passed, and according to his biographers, he was set to make a major address about his latest UFO findings. Professor Hynek is one of the most famous, however, for being the UFO expert and consultant for Spielberg's 77 UFO film, Close Encounters of the Third Time, which involved this particular tower heavily. According to a background paper about the making of the film, Spielberg asked Professor Hynek how much of Devil's Tower should be featured in this movie. Professor Hynek replied, "All of it," he said. "It's that important." In fact, Professor Hynek not only served as a major consultant for Close Encounters, but Spielberg also decided to feature the famous UFO expert in the film. Professor Hynek can be seen with his pipe looking on as aliens communicate with Earth scientists at the Devil's Tower contact site. So that's kind of interesting. I have come to support less and less the idea that UFOs are nuts and bolts spacecraft from other worlds. There are just too many things going on against the theory. To me, it seems ridiculous that superintelligence would travel great distances to do relatively stupid things like stop cars, collect soil samples, and frighten people. I think we must begin to re-examine the evidence. We must begin to look closer to home at alien life already here, explained Professor Hynek in an October '76 statement. Now they're leaving out the one part where he said that they are in fact interdimensional, meaning that throughout time immemorial and throughout history, people of power have been holding down the fact that we are interdimensional beings. We are spiritual beings simply having a human experience. The people that run things, the people that make things national parks, national monuments, they hide all this information away. And Devil's Tower is one of the greater finds. And it was my privilege to go there and get this almost half hour of 4K video for all of you. I'll leave links in the description, and I hope you guys will look into this even more because this is an amazing piece of American history surrounded by prairie dogs everywhere, as you can see from the aerial footage. It's also Wyoming is an amazing, self-sufficient, true American state as far as I can see. I met a few people, I read a few newspapers. There's a lot going on there that directly correlates with things that I say on this channel as a whole. At any rate, if you want to know more about UFOs, Devil's Tower, and the true occult history of America, I'll leave links in the description so you can go off in any direction that you want. The reason that I wanted to do this is I have a feeling myself that we won't be able to do this very much longer. I believe that not only paying fees and paying government officials to look at our own country is getting ridiculous. And while I was gone, it seems to have jumped up a couple of notches. At any rate, Richie from Boston, I hope you enjoyed this. Links will be in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe and give this a thumbs up. I am out.